The guy suddenly woke up because he was drooling. He pulled off the blindfold from his eyes and was shocked to find himself stuck on a cliff thousands of meters high. Below him was a deep ravine, and when he looked up, he saw his parachute tangled in a dry tree, which somehow saved his life. But the wall was completely smooth since it was a salt mine. How was he going to climb up? He quickly pulled out his dagger and wedged it into his shoe, then took out 2 more daggers and slammed them into the wall of the salt mine with all his strength. He was determined to climb up. He was just trying to get out of this terrible mess, but he had barely climbed up 2 meters when the weak branches snapped, and he started to fall fast. Luckily, his parachute was still caught in the tree branches, but before he could catch a break, the dry tree couldn't hold his weight anymore and started to crack. He quickly wrapped the parachute cords tightly, pulled out his knife, and started cutting the rope like crazy. Just as the branches were about to break, he cut the rope and barely managed to save himself from falling. Now, one of his legs was stuck against a wall of salt. He was stuck, clinging to the rock, feeling like he was about to give up. Just then, he looked up and saw a goat standing on the rock, quietly licking some salt. Seeing that brought a spark of hope back to his eyes. Forgetting everything else, he decided to mimic the goat. With all his strength, he shoved his hands into the crevices of the rock. Below him was a deep abyss that made his soul shudder. If he made even the slightest mistake, he'd fall thousands of meters and be smashed to bits. But there was no turning back now. He had to use his hands and feet wisely. He slowly started climbing up, and after a long, tough ascent, he finally reached a raised area. But just as he was about to catch his breath, the salt surface below crumbled, and the sound of falling rocks echoed around him. He steadied himself and tried to keep climbing. Finally, he jumped up like a goat and leaped upward. His hands reached the edge of the rock, but he was running out of strength. No matter how hard he tried, getting up seemed impossible. Just then, a goat came down from above and started glaring at him angrily. He sniffed the air and realized it wasn't like him. Without wasting any time, he charged at the guy. Luckily, the guy was still holding onto the rock with one hand. He started trying to climb up with all his strength, but the goat wasn't one to give up easily. She charged at him again. This time, the guy grabbed the goat by its horns. Sensing danger, the goat panicked and started pulling back. In that struggle, the guy got pulled up and finally made it to the top of the rock, collapsing onto the ground. He lay there, panting, then slowly lifted his hand and placed it on the goat's head, gently brushed it, and there was a look of peace and gratitude in his eyes.